This is the ultimate camera comparison video of Samsung Galaxy S24 and iPhone 15 Pro Max. The battle of the regular flagship versus top of the line. Let the battle begin. Today is a fight between the regular Samsung flagship Galaxy S24 versus Apple's top-of-the-line most expensive handset, the iPhone 15 Pro Max. It's a really good day in Manila. We could see the sky. We're also walking in the Mall of Asia, where we take pictures of random colorful things, people, and colorful objects. We are utilizing all sensors of Galaxy S24 from the ultra-wide main and the telephoto, and also the triple camera setup of iPhone 15 Pro Max from the ultra-wide to the 5x optical zoom. Let's start with color profile and saturation, and right off the bat, you will notice that Galaxy S24 has a cooler white balance than iPhone 15 Pro Max. This actually takes better images on some challenging situations where iPhone counterpart is super yellowish while taking pictures on a brighter light source. Also, around 7 out of 10 images, Galaxy S24 will create brighter images than the iPhone. It also exposes the shadows better looking at the darker background, the ceiling, and even the teddy bears with darker shades. iPhone 15 Pro Max tends to automatically shift from the macro sensor when the subject is closer, and sometimes you will see that S24 will have creamier background blur when shooting in close-up subject, and also the bokeh balls are bigger. You can turn off the macro mode on iPhone 15 Pro Max, but that's another step that you have to do or you have to consider while shooting on both phones. And if you look on the strong light source, you will notice that S24 manages the highlights a little bit better than the iPhone, although they look the same, but you would still see a little bit more information on the Samsung phone. The main sensor of Galaxy S24 has a wider field of view, and I always have to adjust my shots to look the same for the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and has a further zoom 30x compared to the 25x of iPhone 15 Pro Max. While the top-of-the-line iPhone 15 Pro Max has a warmer white balance, it also affects the colors of the images honestly, as the warmer hue will technically produce a more saturated colors from the colors red, orange, and yellow. I also noticed that the surface on some of the shots using iPhone 15 Pro Max has more details on the surface, while Galaxy S24 tends to clean up the details, but that's a different story on the portrait mode, which I will discuss later. Evidently, when you look on the trees or any shadows, you will see that iPhone 15 Pro Max has stronger contrast than the competition. It also crashes the shadows, giving a more amplified look on the natural side compared to the brighter image of S24. What I like about iPhone 15 Pro Max is the 2x lossless crop that gives you all the good details while cropping in, and it has a dedicated 5x optical zoom as what you can see on the Ultras that's not present on the regular S24, but it only manages to zoom in at 25x. All in all, I think you would be happy owning any of these two phones in terms of image quality, ultra-wide main and 3x optical zoom, which is really good on S24, and the ultra-wide wide and 5x optical zoom of iPhone 15 Pro Max, which is a little bit better. This is 8K 30 FPS on the new Samsung Galaxy S24. There's no mode or resolution like this on the latest iPhone 15 Pro Max. I think another win for Samsung Galaxy S24 is the dual video recording. So you can shot on both the sensors front and back. Again, there's no mode like this on the newer iPhone 15 Pro Max. Let's talk about portrait mode, and both phones will produce really good and stunning portrait shots, and we're just nitpicking on both phones. Starting with the regular flagship S24, it has a brighter and better exposed portrait shots, and I think majority of people who likes white-hair complexion will definitely go for the Samsung phone. The best part of Galaxy S24 is it has more bokeh balls at the background, as you can see on all the images, and they're also bigger, so it feels like coming from a more expensive portrait lens. Samsung perfected the subject separation or cutout. It's really good on Galaxy S24, and you will notice there's a warmer white balance than the competition, and people shooting more on the main sensor, you will find that Galaxy S24 has a wider field of view than iPhone 15 Pro Max. While the top-of-the-line iPhone has darker background, the shots are more like a centered metering weight wherein the subject pops out, and the background darkens a little bit for the subject to pop out on the shot. It has a really good subject separation or cutout, and even comparing with Galaxy S24, you could still see hair strands on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, while Galaxy S24 will totally remove them. It has a natural looking skin tone, and like our comparison about the sharpness, it's almost the same on the ultra-wide with the main sensor, but if you go to the optical zoom, iPhone 15 Pro Max has a more reliable 5x optical zoom. It's more detailed, closer, and sharper. Going for the selfie shots, I just don't like the image coming out of iPhone 15 Pro Max. I find it darker, but on some situations with good lighting condition, it will give you good looking portrait shot. Galaxy S24 is brighter and warmer. That makes the image more inviting than the competition. It also has a wider focal length so you can fit more on the frame. Now going for the night shot, it's almost the same look for both phones, just a little bit different on some of the areas. Samsung Galaxy S24 is better exposed and brighter than iPhone 15 Pro Max, and you would also notice that the color reproduction is so much better on this phone. I think it's a better implementation since you need a little bit of colors because everything is dark. Also, it has a cooler tone than iPhone 15 Pro Max, but sometimes if you have a shaky hands, you will have a softer image compared to the iPhone counterpart. While iPhone 15 Pro Max is definitely darker and less exposed than Galaxy S24, it gives you this true night shot vibe and the colors are toned down. It has a warmer white balance compared to the competition, and most of the shots on the iPhone are still in focus and sharp, even with shaky hands. I noticed the ultra-wide sensor of iPhone 15 Pro Max is superior than Galaxy S24, and on pitch black condition, definitely the main sensor of iPhone 15 Pro Max is superior than Galaxy S24. Well, I think the win for the iPhone 15 Pro Max is the reach. So you have the ultra-wide lens, you have the main sensor, 2x digital crop, and 5x. Nice. Let's talk about all the detailed things about these two phones, starting with flaring and looking at all sensors from the ultra-wide main and the telephoto. Both phones handled it really well. In terms of highlights, I would say it's almost the same. They handle it pretty well. Galaxy S24 is a little bit brighter than the competition, while iPhone 15 Pro Max will try to crush it, making it a little bit dimmer than the Samsung Galaxy S24. I think one of the best things about iPhone 15 Pro Max is the macro shot. This phone can shoot really close-up shots. And looking at the sharpness, starting with the ultra-wide lens, I think iPhone 15 Pro Max is a little bit sharper. On the main sensor, I think it's almost the same. And on the telephoto reach, Galaxy S24's 3x optical zoom matches the 5x optical zoom of iPhone 15 Pro Max. But in terms of reach, Galaxy S24 has 30x compared to 25x of iPhone 15 Pro Max. And lastly, details. If you look on the 12 megapixel JPEG, I feel like Galaxy S24 has a little bit of edge on the detail zooming into the photos, but the difference is almost non-existent. This is the selfie video recording of both phones using the cinematic video. This is the iPhone 15 Pro Max and Samsung Galaxy S24. Which is better? Right now it's raining, so we can see the sky, but we're still testing the video capability. This is the ultra-wide lens in 4K 30 FPS. Now we're switching to the main sensor. I think they have the same look, just a little bit darker on iPhone 15 Pro Max, looking at the shadows. Then there's the 2x on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And then we're zooming in to the 5x zoom and 3x zoom on Samsung Galaxy S24. Both looks really good. Using the main sensors of both phones, this is the cinematic video on iPhone 15 Pro Max and the portrait video on Galaxy S24 in 4K 30 FPS. We're also testing the slow motion, and you only have full HD on iPhone 15 Pro Max and a whopping 4K 120 FPS on Galaxy S24. And lastly, low light video. I think from the ultra-wide main sensor and telephoto, iPhone 15 Pro Max is superior than Galaxy S24. Samsung is a little bit jerky and noisy, but iPhone 15 Pro Max is impeccable. I think overall, Galaxy S24 is a solid choice for a flagship phone. Even without the space zoom, you get 8K video recording, 4K portrait video and slow motion, and the image quality is the same as the Ultra. While if you're in dying need of the best video performing smartphone, especially in low light situation, and shoot a lot of macro shot, I would stick with iPhone 15 Pro Max.